So, welcome to the afternoon session on biomass conversion to fuels. My name is Johannes Lercher from the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory of Munich. I'm co-chairing this session with Carsten Sievers from Georgia Tech. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to John Armour for his keynote lecture on key questions, approaches, and challenges to energy today. John doesn't need any introduction. He has been president 2 terms here, so I'm refraining from that, and I probably spoke more than he had allowed me to do it. So without further ado, John, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to give a keynote lecture today. It certainly allows me a lot more time than I could use in a 20-minute presentation, obviously, but as I put this together, I had to keep cutting slides and cutting slides. It started from 100 down to about 35, and then as I worked on it this morning, I kept increasing it, so I had to stop because I was going in the wrong direction. I also want to just take a moment and thank those who had anything to do with the award nomination process in my regard. I appreciate the recognition and I thank them for their support. So, I have this first slide up because I certainly am a proponent of biomass conversion to fuels. I think there are other approaches which you're going to hear about during the course of my presentation, and the focus of this symposium this afternoon is on biomass conversion of fuels. But I was asked to give a presentation about energy, and that's a much bigger topic, and hence the time and the slides that I have allotted for this. Why the interest in energy? Energy is the biggest business in the world. It's a growing opportunity for Catalysis. The costs associated with energy are often the biggest expense to any manufacturer. It's vital to the chemicals industry and is both a feedstock and a fuel. And most importantly to all of us, it affects us in our personal lives every day. This is a pie chart that has varied over the years. Typically, coal, petroleum, and natural gas, and those percentages represent the biggest components of U.S. energy consumption. There is a slice of this which totals only 9%, which deals with renewables. That too will be growing, and for now that's the distribution in here, but there's certainly an effort of a great deal of research around the world. This is another slide that I think people have seen in the past, but it's a more current one, and I don't want to talk so much about the images on the left of the slide, but rather those on the right. You can see that coal has been increasing for quite some decades, as has been natural gas. There are trend lines that tend to go up and go down. For a while we saw oil go down, and now we're seeing it going back up. And really that's what I want to point out on this slide, is that in the case of natural gas, in the case of, I guess I can use this pointer here. Oh, there it is. Okay, in the case of natural gas, we see a recent uptick in the amount of natural gas being used for energy in the U.S. We also see one now for crude oil, and we also see that for other renewables. And all three of those are a reflection of new technology. In the renewables area, there's obviously been a great deal of effort around the world to try and come up with alternative sources of energy, and that's impacted in that curve. In the case of the natural gas and the crude oil curves, fracking technology, especially in the United States, has really changed the slopes of those lines. Fracking has now been applied not just to gas, but also to oil recovery, and so it's generated new resources of those fossil fuels in our world. As I said before, energy is a big business. It's 60% of the world's energy demand will continue to be met by traditional hydrocarbon fuels. And shale gas has created a dramatic shift in energy and chemicals within the United States. By 2020, experts are predicting 40% increase in world energy demand. with developing nations accounting for 80% of that increase. Long-term period of tight supply and tight demand is projected, and this will all increase the demand for more and better catalysts and also as absorbents. Energy-intensive businesses include petroleum refining, natural gas conversion, power generation, transportation vehicles, emission controls, the production of chemicals, which also use a large amount of energy, and the emerging businesses in biomass and solar conversion. In terms of energy needs for chemicals, we see that by far 33% of the industrial organic chemical sector is a big consumer of energy. Other big consumers of energy include production of ammonia, ethylene, chlorine, and methanol in that order. In petrochemicals, steam cracking is the most energy-intensive step, and we find that energy consumes about 20% of the total, chemicals consumes about 20% of the total industrial energy consumption. And it also, as a result, provides a great deal of U.S. CO2 emissions. So, really that's all by way of background, and this is really my outline slide, because if one really wanted to talk about energy, you'd have to go through a long list of topics. And in this case, I've broken them down by the sources: wind, solar, biomass, coal, natural gas, petroleum, etc. And in those areas, one has to address emissions control, transportation, improved devices, including photovoltaics and fuel cells. Having gone through the sources, you then look at storage, capturing energy for off-hour use, especially in issues around solar and wind. And then the products that use energy, such as chemicals, agricultural needs, and transportation vehicles, and finally water. And each one of those bullet items is a lecture in itself. What I'm going to do is just address the ones that are underlined here: solar, biomass, coal, natural gas, and the application of energy to chemicals industry. Now, as catalytic chemists, we're obviously interested to see where our science can be used in addressing problems in energy. And this is a short list. There are probably more on here that I haven't included, running from fuel cells through biomass conversion for this afternoon, the solar splitting of water, water purification, and feedstocks for energy generation. I've not listed all those, but there are certainly lots of opportunities which can be addressed by Catalysis today. And so in today's presentation, I'm really going to provide more of an overview. I'm going to focus on coal, biomass, natural gas, and solar. And I say not selling because I'm really focused more at where do we need to be thinking about some of these areas. So talking about limitations, talking about opportunities, and particularly I'm going to spend more time on gas and solar, and that'll become apparent and why as I get into the presentation. And finally, I want to highlight the issues and emphasize the opportunities as we get to the end. So in terms of non-oil options for energy, coal, I came to Kentucky, I had to put a couple slides up on coal. There's a lot of growth in coal because of the strong energy demands in both the United States and China. Both nations have large long-term supplies of coal to meet future energy needs, and they seek energy independence and using internal resources for providing that energy. However, using coal, as we all know, I think, comes with a much higher level of CO2 emissions whenever you use it versus something which is a bit lower in CO2 emissions, such as natural gas. And then using coal also comes with other issues, if you want to call them that. Coal being a fossil fuel with low hydrogen to carbon ratio means that one has to add some form of hydrogen. Might be molecular hydrogen, might be steam as a source of hydrogen. The energy density is low, and also you have more CO2 per kilowatt of energy produced than other fossil fuels. In addition, there are the undesirable impurities that one has to remove, such as mercury, sulfur oxides, NOx, ash, heavy metals, selenium, and arsenic. The U.S. gets almost half of its electricity from coal, and as a result, we also get a great deal of environmental pollution with the numbers that are listed there. And as a result, emission control standards are established, and it creates a business in itself, much of it which involves the use of catalysts to control those emissions. China, on the other hand, gets more than 90% of its electricity from coal, and with the growth of that nation, we have seen China become now the largest emitter of CO2 in the world. So coal comes with some downside to it. Now, one thing I just wanted to point out, and that is that when you look at any energy source, you have to think about where it is versus where the customer is. And I just wanted to point this out in particular for coal, because in China, most of the coal is in the north. Most of the customers are along its east coast, so that there's a mismatch between the product and the consumer regions. And for something like CTO, coal to olefins, the cost of transporting that coal becomes a factor in the availability, and also considering whether you use coal or some other resource or some other material, not just for energy, but for the production of polymers, for example. In addition, when you then commit yourself to CTO, you've got to appreciate that you're getting lower yields versus other routes to produce some of those same olefins. You're also using more water versus other routes to produce olefins, and you're also producing more CO2 than other routes to get to the similar olefins. So there are other issues that come along whenever you're using coal that you don't necessarily associate with other approaches. So that's really all I want to say about coal, and we're going to switch now to biomass. And remind people again that the growth of biomass is really limited by the amount of cultivatable land. Certainly being able to convert waste materials would change some of the dynamics of that. The size of biomass play will depend on the region in which the biomass is available. The big target is cellulose and waste products, both of which potentially are serving different markets, the fuels and the chemicals businesses. The fuels have different market drivers than the chemicals business, so one has to look at what the sources of those products are from biomass versus, say, from petroleum, and then think about the region in which that's being produced. Cellulosic biomass from ethanol requires also large amounts of water, and there are challenges to also distributing that biomass product, in the case of ethanol here, to where the demand exists. So there is also a transportation issue with biomass, just like we see with coal. Now, again, just pointing out some of the things we need to think about as we go through these biomass presentations, and that is, where you have that biomass and the route you're going to use. There'll be regional supply issues that control the price. There are transportation issues that have to be addressed in bringing that biomass to the marketplace. There's also the product that you want to make, whether you want to make a specialty chemical or a commodity chemical. In the case of biomass, you're going to look at C5 and C6 products, because that's what you're going to get from most biomass when you go through the first treatment processes. Selectivity is going to be a factor and a concern. Availability around the year. A chemical plant runs 24/7 in most cases, so that you have to think about what you're going to do when you have a seasonal product that may not be available in the wintertime. There are also going to be waste and emission issues that you're going to have to address. There's certainly going to be less than those of coal, but the biomass does have some objectionable elements to it, which produced on a huge scale can also become significant. And there are going to be capital and investment costs, new ones that are going to make banks a little bit more conservative in investing in new technology in this area. And you're going to have to look for very reliable, and you're going to be addressing new technology hurdles along the way. And in addition, and I don't think there's enough of, are these mass energy and production cost analysis, what we call LCAs, that people, I think, need to think more about as they advance and select the technology areas that they're focusing on. So those are really the areas that I wanted to talk about in the biomass and coal area, and I want to spend the balance of my time talking about shale gas and solar. In Kentucky alone, there are now over 6,000 shale wells operating. Across the United States, from the west coast to the northeast, there are some 19 different large geographic basins with an estimated 35,000 shale wells. Not until 1995, when hydraulic fracturing technology was available, did we begin to see a change in the level of production of natural gas in the United States. And there are still concerns about a handful of wells that have forced the U.S. to implement tougher drilling rules to protect water supplies and reduce natural gas releases. This is a slide which I've sort of updated in the years that I've been following this technology. The black representing the price of natural gas around the world in millions of dollars per dollars per millions of BTU. And we see when you then compare it to the numbers in red, which are some selected numbers for April of 2011, 4 years later, and to the numbers in green, which I have at the very bottom of this slide, dealing with 2012 and today's price of natural gas, which is just about $4 a million BTU. So we see that the U.S. has dropped from $7.20 to $4.14 to $1.98 and back up to about $4. So there is some oscillation, but certainly not to the values that we saw early on. And when you compare it against prices in Europe or in Asia, we're seeing much larger price swings and differentials in the just the last 6 or 7 years now. So this variability in the price of natural gas has occurred largely, I think, by the discovery of shale gas within the United States. This is a nice global view of potential shale gas reservoirs around the world. The yellow-green color represents large shale gas basins which are known. Now the question is, can they be developed? And you see, not just the ones in the United States and Canada, but also in South America. South Africa has large reservoirs, portions of Europe, and portions of China, and portions of Australia. So while we don't see those productions in those nations outside the United States and Canada, I think we will see some. It may not be in all the areas, and importantly, it's going to take new technology, which is going to be a spin-off of the existing technology. Fracking has opened up a lot of new engineering approaches to getting gas from underground, and we can expect those approaches to be tweaked in the years to come, depending on the geography of the reservoirs around the world. Now, what we have seen in terms of the dynamics is that North American shale gas output has altered the potential, has altered the global market structure for natural gas. Abundant North American natural gas has forced Russia to allow a portion of its natural gas sales to index spot natural gas prices, which was unheard of years ago. The gap in Japanese energy supply has been filled by increased availability of LNG, because all of a sudden the United States doesn't need LNG. And so it's been shifted into the Japanese marketplace. A wider availability of LNG has generated a lot of interest in upgrading natural gas to chemicals. And fracking technology has extended EOR, enhanced oil recovery, and impacted things like exports of petroleum from Nigeria to the United States. So it has had a lot of impact in a lot of different ways. So much so that I wrote an article recently which focused about this mega trend paradigm shift that has occurred because of fracking. It has played a significant role and will play an even more significant role in the future in terms of low carbon chemicals and as a fuel. Natural gas is a very clean, not absolutely clean fossil fuel compared to, say, coal or oil. World natural gas production has increased by 7% in this figure here from 2010, U.S. is now the largest natural gas producer in the world, with shale gas accounting for 25%, and that number is only going to go up. World reserves of tight gas grew 50% from the 1990 to the 2010 period. The drilling technology is there, and improvements and strict enforcement will satisfy environmental concerns. Catalysis has a very significant role here, and a key technology hurdle, I believe, is chemistry around activating the CH bond in methane. Shale energy has trickle-down effects. Natural gas discoveries in Africa and Australia, on top of the impact of natural gas and ethane from the United States, will move more of the world to a global price for natural gas disconnected from the price of petroleum. Wet natural gas is gas that has liquid hydrocarbons in addition to methane. There's also dry natural gas, which has a very low level of those same hydrocarbons. And currently, that is being looked at as an export also, ethane being much more desirable hydrocarbon to the chemicals industry. But there's a lack of infrastructure. It requires different types of shipping vehicles. It requires new pipelines. And so this will come, but it'll be longer in the process. There has been a move away from naphtha for making ethane because of the shale gas discoveries. Shale gas has, in some fields, as much as 8% ethane in it. So that ethane is so much cheaper than making ethane from naphtha that the price differential between naphtha from ethane from naphtha is so different from U.S. ethane prices now with shale gas recoveries. So we've seen that has an impact around the world in terms of other materials that are made from naphtha, because there's less attraction to steam cracking naphtha ethane. And there's also a higher demand for new fertilizer plants, also new methanol plants in the United States, which take advantage of the cheap shale gas resource in the U.S. Natural gas is also an alternative energy source. It's less carbon intensive than other fossil fuels, 30% less carbon than oil, and 60% less carbon than coal. And when used for power generation, natural gas emits up to 60% less CO2 than coal, and emissions of other waste products such as mercury, sulfur, and nitrogen are certainly much reduced. Our new Secretary of Energy in the United States has pointed out that shale gas has been partially responsible for the decrease in U.S. CO2 emissions, and at the same time it provides then a bridge for a low-carbon future and the time then that it's going to take to develop other renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and wave. Just very quickly, a point on this slide. This is a chart that shows the price of black crude oil versus brown natural gas Henry Hub prices, which are put on an equal energy basis. So these are dollars per million BTUs. And you see what's happened between the period of 97 and 05 or so was that oil and natural gas more or less mirrored one another. So you saw the prices following one another. What we've seen very recently, though, is that oil is going off in one direction here, and natural gas is obviously going in the other direction. And that's really been driven by the price or the impact of shale gas production in the United States. For feedstocks, we also see a big impact of shale gas, and this is a chart that I prepared looking at dollars per million BTU in the vertical axis versus the source of a feedstock, looking from LPG all the way over to heating oil. The red numbers representing 2012, the blue numbers 2004, and you can see that obviously most things have gone up in that 8-year period, except really for natural gas. Coal has had a slight increase, and it's still very competitive as an energy source. It's just carrying around in the baggage with it. So natural gas has become very popular and very attractive as a feedstock as a result. So what we're seeing is that natural gas becomes a very powerful platform for chemical production in the United States. It's key to the production of ammonia, methanol, And then once we have methanol, we can take methanol to olefins. We can also take methane to Fischer-Tropsch. We can take the ethane from natural gas and make ethylene, and we can use that same ethylene to make polyolefins, or we can take even some of the propane and make polyolefins from that as well. So I think the biggest opportunity, when I pointed out earlier about shale gas, is into the Catalysis community, is thinking of it as a carbon extender. Methane costs now are so much lower than other petroleum and coal, or other fossil fuels certainly, that it has become a very attractive starting point if you want to make lower carbon number materials. Methanol has become a feedstock platform for making, formaldehyde, MTBE, acetic acid, methylene macrolate, and it's growing in terms of its conversion for biodiesel or ME, or methanol olefins, or methanol propylene. We're also seeing that besides gasification to syngas, CO and hydrogen, one can insert methane into higher hydrocarbons, potentially, and there's a lot of opportunity which needs to be developed. One can talk about things such as, could we take not just methane and oxygen to things like formaldehyde, but could we take methane and methanol to ethanol? Maybe we need to add some oxygen in that in order to generate water as a driver for the thermodynamics of the operation. And certainly would be a lot cheaper using methane than breaking down coal or petroleum by cracking to make lower carbon number products. Now, we have to keep in mind that we need selectivity and yield if we're going to do this. Cautions with regard to shale gas. There's a lot of enthusiasm based on projections that it's going to be around for 30 years for a particular well. This is still being evaluated, but so far the wells are producing according to the projections. So there is a good deal of optimism that the U.S. will have long-term supplies of natural gas this way. There come environmental challenges, such as controlling the emissions of natural gas around the wells, issues around water purification and the impurities in some of the cracking fluids. The U.S. has an established pipeline system and a market structure that makes it easy to move shale gas to many other commercial uses and applications, but that doesn't exist in most places around the world. And the U.S. government has also established a regulatory framework that is in place that, again, other nations don't have. So as the opportunity comes available for other nations to exploit this, they have to build these mechanisms into their production operations. The U.S. also is very beneficial by the large amount of land that it has versus other nations, and so we have a very large land-to-well ratio, which isn't possible in many of the nations in Europe, for example. So opportunities outside the U.S. I think will come, but they're going to be delayed. It will take a longer period of time for that to develop. That's all I'll say about the shale gas. I'm focused now on solar. When we look at these various sources of energies around available to our Earth, solar has by far a large percentage of potential energy. 600 terawatts is the practical achievable solar, according to some estimates. Wind, tidal, geothermal, they're all in the 2 to 10 region, so that even biomass at 5 to 7 just doesn't compete with the potential energy that we have with solar. And if you look at solar radiation striking the Earth, there is enough solar striking the Earth in 40 minutes to satisfy the world's total energy consumption in 1 year. That's the type of potential that is out there. And we just need to have a way of harnessing that. We can do that with solar collectors today and photovoltaic devices. And I've listed here the various estimates for solar intensity conversion to kilowatt hours per year around the world. Certainly in London, it's not as good as Los Angeles, but the point is it's still there, and there's sufficient amounts to make it worth your while to recover that solar. And as a point of reference, I've got the average power consumption of various devices in our homes, TVs, refrigerators, air conditioners, and so you may not satisfy all your energy needs this way, but you can supplement your energy needs, which is what's happening. Solar is undergoing a boom in terms of photovoltaic devices. We've seen in the last 2 decades now a real takeoff of devices being sold. Different color bars represent, in this case, yellow for China and Taiwan, green for the United States. And this has sort of leveled a bit with the recession worldwide that we've been going through and other market issues, but it certainly does present a growing opportunity. And technology has done a lot in terms of driving down the price on the vertical axis here per power unit as a function also of installed cumulative capacity. And so solar has one of the few sources of energy which is projected to continue to drop in price. And we see in this chart here, now a couple of years old, but still I think clearly demonstrates that when one looks at the cost in terms of cents per kilowatt hour over major U.S. cities, we see that the solar price would be the yellow box, and the black bars represent the current price in terms of cents per kilowatt hour for that electricity. And so many major cities today are finding that solar is a convenient and attractive energy resource using existing photovoltaic devices. In countries around the world, particularly the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom and Japan, we see companies being started up with rooftop devices which are provided at no cost and where the owner agrees to lease the energy produced from the solar cells to the electricity power grid. In Japan, you can buy electricity from the grid, and you can also sell that. There are vehicles for doing that. Kyocera sells a battery storage system based on lithium at a fairly high price, but then power is very expensive in Japan. One city in Japan sells rooftop leases for attractive prices when you look at it on a long-term basis. So really now, in summary for what I've been addressing this afternoon, if we look at these 4 resources for energy, I've tried to point out some of the key issues that I'd like to see more work on. Coal in terms of handling spent CO2 in an environmentally acceptable way, converting the emissions in ash to acceptable and useful products. In biomass, widely differing feedstocks around the globe that deserve attention in terms of how do you address wood versus corn versus other cellulose-based sources. And one has to also think about the potential of using waste material, where there's a big opportunity around the world. Shale gas, natural gas is a platform for low-carbon chemicals. It's happening already with methanol, and converting more of that natural gas into value-added chemicals is a tremendous opportunity. And in terms of solar, one has to resolve the storage of solar. There's also a great opportunity in the photodecomposition of water, and an even bigger opportunity in the conversion of CO2 to essentially carbohydrates, artificial photosynthesis, which is an opportunity, I think, for many of the younger people in this room to begin thinking about. So when we, winding down to my last 2 slides here, addressing energy efficiently, as I titled this, energy efficiency clearly offers near-term energy reduction. And I'm using energy efficiency in a fairly broad term here, but what we certainly have is an opportunity to use more energy efficient equipment. The difference between my green and black items here is that green are items which can be addressed by catalysis, and certainly improving process chemistry, creating new and more energy efficient processes, and reducing byproducts selectively offer a great deal of opportunity for the catalysis community. Alternative energy approaches such as recycling waste, investing in renewables, creating new products, shifting to renewable feedstocks, using photocatalysis in the solar energy spectrum, and also the abatement of emissions. So finally, just summarizing, more sort of looking more specifically, things that I think one can think about in terms of addressing energy, and I think, again, it provides a lot of potential for financial support and industrial backing, looking at fuel economy, catalytic conversion of biomass and cellulose. We talked about photocatalytic conversion of water, emissions control in the refining business, as well as with regard to global warming emissions, and finally, catalytic conversion of CO2. Not addressed all of those, but I'll leave that up and be pleased to take any questions that you may have in the time that remains. Thank you.
Thank you for the very, very good lecture. Questions, remarks? Yes, please.
John, you mentioned that you would like to see more research on methane activation. On all these last, 40 years, what else do you do? What do you do differently?
Yeah, there certainly has been an awful lot of work in the past. And I think using that or recalling that and learning from that, it's a tough problem, certainly. And it's not going to be one that's addressed or solved easily. But the value is enormous. The more we can get out of methane, besides just burning it for energy, the more value we're going to get out of the product and the value to the science and the technology. So that's why I talked about it as thinking about it as a carbon extender. You know, I had one specific example of methanol to ethanol. So could you use methane to begin to incorporate carbon atoms into something like methanol? Methanol has a lot of value now, but ethanol will also have a great deal of value, not just as a fuel component, but in a variety of C2s in the chemical industry. Once you get to ethanol, you can get to a lot of new products. And right now, our technology, our science isn't set up for doing that. We tend to operate by taking petroleum and cracking it down. If you had a base, as you do in Brazil, using ethanol, you could go a lot further in different ways. But the world doesn't think that way. The world thinks cracking petroleum. Brazil has adapted, and I think other nations could do that too. And I think ethanol, I perceive, is a lot easier to activate and convert to C2s, C3s than certainly methane or methanol.
I would like to hear your views about natural gas fracking technology. All you said is nice and beautiful, but there are many areas, countries, particularly in Canada and Quebec, that they have forbidden the fracking because they think that creates a lot of geological damage, and there may be breakers to the picture you said as your substance.
Yeah, I think fracking is new technology, and hydraulic fracking is even newer. It's a technology that was developed in a very short period of time, and there's certainly room for improvement. But it's very easy to justify that improvement because you're getting a very valuable product. So I think that there's a lot of incentive for doing this already, and it's happening. But part of the problem is we're dealing with geology here, which is very different around the world. And I think for a while people said, oh, well, we'll just use the same approach that we did in the United States and hold it. And it doesn't work that way. And so they have to develop different types of additives for the hydraulic fluids. They have to get the equipment over there, which hasn't been available to drill the thousands of wells that happen to be already positioned in the United States. So there's got to be a mindset, there's got to be enough demonstration of reliability and safety, I think, for this to spread around the world. There has been a lot of press about water pollution and whatever. A lot of that's been just challenged now, and I think we have to wait for the final reports to come out. But I think people are beginning to believe that it's either a very small number or it's been incorrectly reported. So I think the jury is still out on that. But I believe personally that with stricter controls in terms of emissions, monitoring, safeguarding, patrolling, if you will, these facilities, you're going to be able to keep this more under control. And the opportunity is enormous.
Young little Sievers, John, of course you and I have been around for a long time, but I would like to hear your opinion about the C1 chemistry back and talk about oxidative coupling, which was of course in the heydays of the 90s, went to about 300 papers a year, and now it's coming back, and I would like to hear your opinion.
Well, again, another tremendous opportunity, but people have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and there are some, significant issues which need to be addressed. And, people have talked about engineering solutions and whatever, and I think there are probably other ways to think about, not just that, but other approaches beyond selective oxidation. I don't have any immediate answers here, or I'd be back in the lab or become a rich man, but all I'm saying is the opportunity is there in terms of payback and value to be doing this.
John, thanks very much for a nice presentation. Fuel cells, you mentioned it. With all this natural gas available and all the difficulties we saw with power generation and power going down in all storms, don't you see, or do you see any evidence that the natural gas will be converted to hydrogen to operate fuel cells?
Yeah, I think that's certainly one opportunity. Hydrogen certainly would be a valued product from the methane. However, there are many other value-added products that you can get. It's a matter of investment too, I think, in terms of where do you need that hydrogen, what the customer is, what their volume demand is, and it becomes a very specialized look in terms of who it is, what your customer is, and what they're seeking. But certainly, it's an opportunity, and I would think that people are already piggybacking on that approach. It's certainly one, but I think there are lots of others.
Okay. We have to move to the next presentation. Let's thank John again.